This is Shapur the First. He is the new Archer Rally Commander in Rise of Kingdoms. They've just released the skills. We've already done a full breakdown of Emperor Qin, who is going to be the field commander for the new Archer release. Now this, Shapur, is the Rally Commander. So we're going to talk all about how this guy might or might not change the game, and if he's even viable for the field, as we need more and more archers for the field to be successful. So stick around. We'll figure it out together. Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm your buddy War Daddy Chatsky. I'm your boy, and I put out videos all the time. And I really appreciate anybody who enjoys the video and is a part of it. Please comment down below. I always get involved in those comments. If you like the videos, throw a thumbs up on them. And I hope you enjoy them. I also stream all the time. Be sure to be a part of those streams. Join the chats. Join the community. And speaking of that community, my Discord link is in the description. Be sure to check it out. That's where a lot of these conversations come into play. That's where a lot of these things happen. And so with that, we're going to talk about the new Archer Rally Commander. I was on stream about this the minute it launched in the game as far as the skills of the field and the Rally Commanders. I got my buddies online with me and we talked about it. We went through the whole kits. We did all that fun stuff. And this is the guy that we've got to talk about when it comes to the Rally Commanders of Archers. Okay, Archers are in need of a pairing with Ashurbanipal. Okay, Ash is a great rally commander. He is fantastic, and we need somebody to go with him, to complement him. It would be really, really good. Plus, we need somebody to maybe bring Henry back into the fold to be more of an anti-swarm type of rally. So they released this guy, Shapur. This guy was a king, was a guy in Middle East and ancient Persia, if you will. He fought the Romans. He did all kinds of crazy stuff, and I love the design of this guy. I think it's really, really fun, and he is an archer commander. He is a conquering with skill. Skill is great for archers, as we talk about. Any commander, especially for the archers that have skill, that's what they do. They do skill damage. You're going to want, in the talents, to have this skill tree maxed out at times, just depending on what kind of attributes the other skills that they give us. So having a skill commander for the talent trees is really, really good for archers. We know this. We know this already. So when you look at this overall, this is pretty generic when it comes to archers conquering skill. We see that all the time. Ash has got the same thing. Henry's got the same thing. That's how archers work. And with the kind of new invention of how skill damage works with Emperor Qin, we're starting to see some different mechanics. Now, this guy, Shapur, is more of a traditional sense. He's going to take rage, he's going to run his active skills, and his active skill is really, really good to go along with all of his other skills. So let's get into those skills and talk about them. First and foremost, we're going to get into this. The Might of Shahanshah. I am great at pronouncing stuff sometimes, but it takes me a second to actually kind of sound it out in my brain. But that is going to be the active skill. Okay, so his active skill now has exceeded the total damage of Subutai. So this guy is the number one. Shapur is the number one damage dealing rally commander and commander in general. He's going to do 3,200 damage factor. So you can see here, deals additional damage to a target troop every second for 4 seconds. The damage factor is 800. If the target has less than 500 rage, it also cannot receive shield effects for 2 seconds. Oh boy, this is very, very big. First of all, let's talk about the first part of this. This is an additional damage aspect. Additional damage. This is different, okay? Because immediately we thought of Sargon, right? And we'll pull this down. When you think of Sargon and you think of some of these commanders that are doing damage kind of every second for a handful of seconds or a few seconds, you got to understand exactly how they work. Let me find my guy Sargon. Here he is. Okay. Now it's very clear, and the text matters here. For the next 5 seconds, whenever this commander's troop launches a basic attack, it has a 100% chance to deal extra direct damage. Okay, that is very, very clear that whenever the commander's troop is launching a basic attack, it has a chance 100% chance to deal that direct damage to the target of 500 damage factor. Okay, that's different. Okay, it's different than additional damage. Additional damage basically means, and this is really, really important for the field if we're going to talk about Shapur in the field. Additional damage means once his active skill goes off, you can walk away from the enemy and they're still going to get the damage done to them. Okay, so this is very, very important because it really distinguishes whether or not this guy might even be viable for the field. Okay, on the rally, it doesn't matter. You're hooked up and you're going on the rally. Okay, so with that being said, that is how that additional damage works. It's also going to probably bring into play in the skill tree as we talk about this. Let's see. Do we have the skill tree over here with him? Okay. Latent power is something that we probably will want to use with this guy. Latent power gives you extra additional damage, and that's what this is all for. So obviously skill damage is going to be enhanced by this guy and latent power. So that's something you want to think about for your talent trees. All right. So when you come to the second part of this, this active skill, if the target has less than 500 rage, it also receives a shield. It cannot receive a shield effect for the next 2 seconds. This is kind of crazy. Okay. Because a lot of the times what's going to happen is that after you, let's say you have a Gorgo Hera garrison. After Gorgo fires off, you definitely have less than 500 rage. That is when Hera fires off his big mighty shield. Okay? If this shield cannot fire off, it completely nerfs Hera. Completely nerfs Hera. And then Hera, I believe, has another active shield. Hold on. Right here on his third skill. And this is kind of a hit and miss when this thing can kind of fire off, but it does fire off whenever you do an active skill. Well, anytime you do an active skill, your rage is 0. So you're under 500 rage. So if you look at this, that's going to be very, very effective if the target has less than 500 rage. It also cannot receive a shield for the next 2 seconds. That completely nerfs Hera. This guy is going to be a Hera killer. Guess what it also nerfs? And this is what's really discouraging for a lot of infantry players, as we have just gotten the new infantry garrison. It's going to absolutely discourage Tokugawa. Tokugawa does a 600 mighty shield. That's part of his kit. Now, he does do a lot of smite damage, but he does a 600 mighty shield. But then you have this massive mighty shield that he does. If this commander is a garrison commander, whenever the garrison receives a buff, okay, well, understand this. More times than not, you're going to receive a buff after the active skill, okay? So anytime Gorgo fires off, part of her active skill is that she's going to deal more normal damage of 10%. That is a buff. Okay. And so some of the other things that you also have a triggered normal damage buff here. So with that being said, when you come back down here to Tokugawa, you got to understand that he's gaining these shields a lot of the times after active skills. And when he does that, what's the rage going to be? The rage is going to be less than 500. So this is a complete, just in the active skill alone, Shapur, the archer rally commander, is completely nerfing the shields, which is kind of crazy to me because just about all garrison commanders, especially on the infantry side, run shields, especially on the leadership side. So this dude is going to wreck Hera's and he's going to wreck Tokugawa. Tokugawa, it's a little bit disappointing for these infantry players because this guy's only been out a month. And he's wrecking things, especially with Gorgo, Tokugawa, with Pincer. Now, Pincer really makes that thing go. Pincer is the formation that really makes it go. And so when you see that overall, the Pincer's still there, obviously. But as far as the skills of Tokugawa, this guy is going to nerf the shielding of Tokugawa, which is a big, big thing, okay? Let's go to the second skill, the humiliation of Rome. This guy went to battle all the time historically with Roman emperors. He went to battle all the time in Syria and all these different places that Roman had occupation. And that's why this is kind of cool to have the title of Humiliation of Rome, because he actually captured the Roman emperor one time. Shapur was a dude. All right. This commander's archery units gain 20% march speed and 20% health. Okay. That's a really, really good stack stick. The march speed is really good, because that has nothing to do with being in a rally. So that can be in the field. Okay, we'll just keep that in mind for field. Whenever the troop takes damage and has a 25% percent chance to gain 30% attack for 3 seconds. There is no cooldown on that. So if you calculate and average that out, it averages out to be about 15 to 20% attack every second. Okay, so basically you're getting like a 55 to 60% stat stick on this commander perpetually. Okay, 20% health, 20% march speed, 15 to 20% attack every second. Okay, now this is where it gets interesting. If you're leading a rally attack, their archer units gaining an extra 20% march speed. This guy's gonna go zoom zoom in a march with a rally. When he's rallying and you see those archers go by, he's going to have 40% march speed. He's going to have extra march speed from Ash or Henry. And this guy is going to go flying past whatever he's going by. And that's very important because sometimes archer rallies are not very fast. So just keep that in mind. Okay, let's go to his third skill. All right. The third skill, Blessed by the Atash. Okay, whenever this commander's troops deal skill damage, it has a 20% chance to inflict the following effects for 3 seconds. He's got 20% anytime he deals skill damage. All right, the target cannot receive temporary health buffs. That's the first effect. Wait a minute. Temporary health buffs. Let's go back and look at this. If the shielding wasn't enough, okay, if the shielding wasn't enough to nerf to where you can't shield if you're under 500 rage, look at the Tosho effect of Tokugawa. Okay, this is one of his big skills. He gains 1 stack of the Tosho effect for 10 seconds. Each stack increases the arch or the health of the garrison's infantry by 4%. Actually, it's 5% when it's expertise. All right. The Tosho effect can stack up to 4 times. That's 20% health that's desperately needed by an infantry garrison. That's 20% health that's gone. It completely evaporates. You cannot receive this temporary health buff, so this is going to reset and then it's got to recharge. The beauty with the Tosho effect is that once it gets going, because each stack of the health, the Tosho effect is stacked up to 4 times the duration, resets. So what we know in the garrison is that this thing, once it gets up to 20% health with the 4 stacks, it will stay that way pretty much the whole time unless something crazy happens. Well, something crazy is about to happen. And so now this dude is going to take his third skill and he's going to force you to temporarily disconnect any of those health buffs. Okay, so for 3 seconds you get that kind of debuff on the buffs, if you will. And so that is another counter to Tokugawa. And then the next part of this, the target deals 20% less normal damage for 3 seconds. Okay, the target deals 20% less normal damage for 3 seconds. This is what you guys have to understand. And this is what's interesting. Every time you deal skill damage, it has a 20% chance. Well, you're going to be dealing skill damage all the time. You got to remember this guy's active skill, okay? His active skill is doing additional damage for 4 seconds. So this particular third skill with a 20% chance to inflict the following effects for 3 seconds, that is when you deal skill damage. There's no cooldown on this. Okay, so this is going to be ramping up pretty regularly. Now, I know 20%, but if you're dealing skill damage just about every second with this guy and his secondary, then you're in a situation where you're going to keep a lot of uptime on this, and that makes it really, really good. Huge nerf to Tokugawa. Huge nerf to any garrison that's buffing health. Any temporary buffs. Okay, let's go to his 4th skill. The Stout Walls of Shapur. Okay, if the commander is leading a rally attack, whenever their rally army grants a buff, it has a 50% chance to gain 100 rage and gain 30% bonus to skill damage dealt for 3 seconds. The cooldown on this is 4 seconds. Whenever you get a buff, okay, how do you get buffs with this guy? First of all, you want to look at this in the sense of, okay, who are you going to pair him with? Well, this makes this a match made in heaven with our boy Ash, all right? Because Ash's expertise Whenever the commander's troops uses an active skill, it gains one of the following 4 buffs. This is kind of like that roulette buff situation that Ash has going on. It's why he's really good, like with Joan in the field, to do more active skills. He's pretty good with Villa to do more active skills because you get more buffs. Well, every single time, there's no cooldown or anything on this. Every single time you do active skill damage, you get a buff. Okay, every single time you do an active skill. That doesn't mean damage over time, you get it every second. It just means active skill. You fire that off on the primary, you fire it off on the secondary. He gives an active skill. So with a 50% chance, if we look at this, you're gonna on average fire this thing off every single active skill, because you're doing 2 active skills and you're going to fire that thing off all the time. So that's a rage engine. You're gaining 100 rage, and you get a 30% bonus to skill damage dealt for 3 seconds, which is very important because Ash is firing off a lot of skill damage, and Shapur is firing off additional damage, which is skill damage, every second for 4 seconds. All right, so just understand that. That is a great synergy situation with Ash. All right, and not just Ash. As we talk about this a little bit, because we brought up Henry as well. When you look at Henry, let me come over here. Let me get my archers going. When you bring up Henry, all right, Henry has got some, let me see. He should have a buff on here for his normal damage. Yeah, here it is. Okay, anytime you're over 70% rage, you deal 30% more normal damage. Okay, if not, their troops deal 20% less normal damage. So you get buffed there, okay? And so that's really, really good for Henry because you're laying down those buffs. Anytime you receive a buff, just like we talked about with Shapur's 4th skill. Okay, let's go to his expertise. All right? This is going to be pretty interesting on how this thing works as well. All must submit, okay? If this commander is leading a rally attack, whenever their rally army deals damage, it has a 15% chance to deal additional damage for 1 second. I'm going to simplify that for you. Additional damage for 1 second to 5 enemy troops near the target. Okay, damage factor 200. Damage factor of 200 is a very low damage factor. All right, however, you're basically kicking out additional damage in an AoE format. Okay, so basically what happens here is this doesn't specify what kind of damage it is. You could be doing damage every single second. And if you're dealing damage, you have a 15% chance to deal additional damage every second for 1 second. Okay, that's basically every second for 1 second. So that's 1 second. So you have the best way to read this is 15% chance to deal additional damage to 5 enemy troops near the target, damage factor 200. The cooldown's only 1 second. Okay, now you got to understand this. This is very, very important because the verbiage here says rallied army deals damage. All right. If you are getting swarmed, you're not only dealing damage to the target, which is the garrison, you're also dealing damage to everybody swarming you. Okay, so understand this. This is a little bit of an anti-swarm mechanic because when everybody is swarming you, you're dealing counterattack damage to all those marches swarming you. So this effect will fire off. If you're getting swarmed, 5x, 10x, 15x, this thing will fire off every time and it'll only cool down. So every other second, you'll be doing red numbers to 5 targets, 5 enemy troops around the target you're hitting. Okay, so it's got a little bit of anti-swarm to it, which is really, really good. You think about that, and you think about that with maybe Henry's normal damage that he does. Okay, so now all of a sudden we've got a little bit of prickliness going on here. It's going to be red numbers going everywhere. All right, it's not a massive Zuge AoE, massive damage effect, but if it's happening every other second, if you're getting swarmed, it's very, very important. Okay, let's go to the second part of this. If they aren't leading a rally attack, whenever their troop deals additional damage, it has a 15% chance to deal additional damage for 2 seconds to 1 enemy troop near the target. Okay, so not really a big AoE effect. You just got another troop you're going to be able to do damage to. It's going to be a 400 damage factor, and that's how that works. Now, the other thing about this is that there's no cooldown I see on this. And so whenever you deal additional damage, which he does for 4 seconds, right? His active skill has additional damage for 4 seconds. You got a 15% chance to deal additional damage for 2 seconds to another troop type. Okay, so that's kind of okay, not amazing, but that's kind of how that works for the field. So in a rally, when you think about this guy, we talked about Ash, we talked about Henry. Okay, there can be some other things that you can look at when it comes to this guy. We're going to test them all out, but the additional damage that he does off of his active skill, let me pull it back up here. The additional damage he does of 3,200 damage factor, that is officially the biggest damage factor of any commander in the game on a target. Biggest of any commander. So that's something we got to think about. So he's going to be doing high damage, and he's doing a lot of cool stuff that synergizes with Ash. That's going to be a crazy, crazy rally. And then if it's a little bit of a prickly situation that you got to get into that's contested, you can put him with Henry. You can run up the normal damage. It's really, really good. And so it is a really good effect to be able to put a commander like this. But the main thing is, what everybody has to understand, Hera, completely nerfed. Mighty Shield is going to be nerfed when it comes to Shapur. All right? When it comes to Tokugawa, his shield is going to be completely wrecked, where he's not even able to fire this thing off. And so let me grab him. Let's see. Here he is. Tokugawa, shield. Can't use it. Shield is going to be nerfed. Basically, it's going to be silenced. He's not going to be able to do the shield. Also, the Tosho effect, okay? He's not going to be able to keep the Tosho effect at 20% extra health. So that is a direct counter. I wish the game wouldn't do that, because that doesn't just look like a direct counter. That looks like a straight up just crushing, okay? You're not just countering Tokugawa. You're completely messing him up. And so that's what they've given us with this guy. I really, really like it, though. When it comes to archers, they need as much help as they can get. So let's go over to the field aspects of this, okay? And let's talk about this when it comes to field. As we come to this, you don't have any issues at all running up that active skill in the field. So you get 100% of that active skill efficiency. However, when you're in the field, you're definitely not hitting targets that have shields, okay? So that's kind of not great for the field, the second effect of that. But the bottom line is that damage factor is good, and that's additional damage factor. So people have to understand, if you're hit and run and you're going back and forth in a murder ball and the active skill fires off and the red numbers start from Shapur, you can walk away and those red numbers will keep going for 4 seconds. Okay, so that's really good for the field. The Humiliation of Rome, the second skill, you get the march speed, you get the health, all right, and you get the attack. All those work with him. Now, obviously, you're not leading a rally attack, so you can't get the extra 20% march speed, but that's pretty good. 20% march speed, 20% health, and averaging out to be 15 to 20% attack that you can get every second. Okay, I know that we talked about that. That's a 3-second buff, but there's no cooldown, and when you calculate that out, it's anywhere from 15 to 20% kind of perpetually. Okay, when you go to his third skill, all right, this works too in the field. You can completely negate the health buffs that troops have in the field. All right. Also, the target deals 20% less normal damage. That's good. When you're hitting Arthur, the normal damage Arthur does enhances his combo. So that nerfs the combo. When you're hitting Luce or Bai Chi or CJ or William Wallace, their smite works off of normal damage. So this is kind of countering that smite and combo situation. All right, so this is a really good skill. It's even better for the rally, but in the field, it's got some serviceability. All right, this 4 skill is not used at all. And this is probably the issue that's not going to make him a really, really good field commander. All right, because you're not going to get any of this benefit at all to gain the rage, so you don't necessarily have the rage engine from the skills, and also you're not going to get that 30% bonus to skill damage dealt. Okay, so that's probably what's going to keep people from running this in the field. Or if you want to run them in the field, you wish you had that 4 skill. Let's go to his expertise. The expertise is different if he's in the field, because if you're not leading a rallied army, whenever your troops deal additional damage, which you do every active skill, you got a 15% chance to deal additional damage for 2 seconds at a 200 damage factor to one other target. Okay, so just like a one target AoE, if you will. And that's okay, it's not amazing. We'll just have to try this guy out in the field and see if he works. But archers have been known to give us rally commanders that do work for the field. We use Ash. Ash is amazing. He's a rally commander, but he's absolutely amazing in the field. We use him all the time. So that's some of the things that you can think about and look at. And so overall, I think this commander is going to be insane. The archers needed a good rally commander. They needed somebody that they could go to. Ash is getting a little bit old, but Ash is still amazing. But Ash is having to be paired with Zuge and Henry. All right, so now give us something that's big time single target damage and counters any garrison that uses shields. Any garrison that uses shields or any garrison that uses health buffs. This guy counters it. So he's going to absolutely wreck the infantry. And even if infantry, we'll see if it can overcome, because Pincer is so strong. We've talked about the infantry garrisons. Pincer is super, super strong. So will that be able to be enough to kind of at least hold this guy at bay a little bit? I think Shapur is going to trade positive against any kind of Gorgo Tokugawa. I think he's really going to trade positive against Gorgo and Hera. And we just have to see if the Gorgo Tokugawa with the Pincer can keep the trades not just completely overwhelming. Pincer's so strong, so now we're going to test it. We're going to test to see how good Pincer is, because it's going to have to really, really carry. If you enjoyed this video, throw a like on here, give it a thumbs up. Appreciate everybody for hanging out with us. And if you want to subscribe to the channel, it doesn't cost you anything. You can do that, and helps out the subscriptions. We are pushing through our subscribers. We're ramping this thing up. You've got a Discord link down in the description if you want to join my Discord and join the conversation and have fun with us. That's what this game's all about. That's why we love it so much. With all that being said, hope you guys have a great day.